Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Android application development tutorial. In this episode we are going to learn about how to create a selectable menu. So for creating a selectable menu, you need to add a radio button or a checkbox with the menu items. So you can add a radio button or checkbox into the menu item using the selectable behavior attribute. So here in this episode I am going to show you how to add a radio button into the menu items. So start a new project in Android Studio. So the first thing we have to create the menus. So create a new menu resource file in the menu folder. So right click the menu folder and create a new menu resource file. I name the file as network menu and click OK. Now here we have a menu. So here I am going to add a radio button. So I have to use a group. So here I use a group. So into this group I have to add some items. So add the first item. Provide an ID for this item using Android ID attribute. I name it as ID Wi-Fi. Also provide a title for this item using Android title attribute. Use Wi-Fi. Okay. Now I am going to add another item with ID Bluetooth and change the title into use Bluetooth. Okay, and add one more item with ID IT mobile data. Also change the title into use mobile data. Okay, now here we have a menu that contains 3 items. So now I am going to add a radio button into this menu items. It is very simple. So here I am going to add a radio button. So I have to use an attribute called Android checkable behavior. So here you can use 3 values: single, all and none. None means it does not add a radio button or a checkbox. If using single option, then it will add a radio button, and if you using the all option, instead of radio button it will add some checkboxes. So here I am going to add a radio button, so I use a single option. So I set the checkable behavior into single. That means here I am going to add a radio button with each of these items. Of course you can use this checkable behavior with each of these menu items. So here I use it with a group. That means it is applicable for entire items within the group. You can use this checkable behavior with each of these items. Okay, so now go back to activity main.xml file. Here I am going to add a button. So add a button into the activity main.xml file. Go to the XML version and change the title of the button into network selection. Okay. Also add an on-click method for this button using Android on-click attribute. Select network. Okay, now go back to main activity.java file. Here we have already an options menu is available. I remove that menu. Okay, now here I am going to create that method, on click method for the button. Public void network selection. We have to make sure that network select network. It is not network selection. Void select network. Okay, don't forget to add a view class object here. So whenever user click the button, I have to show a context menu. So for creating a context menu, we have to override some context menu methods like onCreate context menu. So override the method called onCreate context menu. So in this method we have to create the context menu. So for that we need an object of menu inflator, and I name it as menu inflator equal to get menu inflator. Okay, so now I am going to inflate that particular menu XML file using the menu inflator object. So menu inflator dot inflate r dot menu dot our XML file name is network menu, and pass the context menu object. Okay, now I have to display the context menu whenever user press the button. So whenever user select the button, this method will invoke. First I have to register this button with the context menu. So use the method register for context menu and pass the view object. Okay, now the button is registered with the context menu. So if user press and hold the button, the context menu will appear. So I have to display the context menu whenever user click the button. So I have to use another method called open context menu and pass the view object. So this will make sure that whenever user hold or click the button, the context menu will appear. Okay, now we can check it out. Now I am going to test the application, so click the run button. Okay, now the application is available on the virtual device. So if I hold the button, the context menu will appear, or if I click the button, the context menu will appear. So you can see the menu item contain a radio button. So you can select only one item at a time because it is available in a group. So you can select only one item at a time. Now we have to learn how to handle the click events with these radio buttons. So for handle the click events of the context menu, we have to create another method called on context menu item selected. Yeah, this one, on context item selected, override this method. So here we have to handle each item. So here I am going to use a switch case statement to handle each item. So use a switch case statement. So item dot get item ID. Now we have to analyze each of the item ID. So on the first case, we have to check whether it is the Wi-Fi network. r.id is id.wifi. So in that case, first here I am going to display a message using a toast get application context Wi-Fi selected. Okay, now provide the length for the toast dot make it long, and finally make the toast visible using show method. Okay, and one more thing, if you're using a radio button or a checkbox with a menu, the radio button or the checkbox is not capable of change its state automatically. So we have to change the state of the radio button or checkbox manually. So here I am going to change the state of the item. So item dot search checked into true. Okay, and finally we have to return true. Okay, now we have to check the other two items. If the ID equal to Bluetooth, change the message into Bluetooth is selected. Also make the checkbox into checkable using is checked true. Sorry, it is not checkbox, it is a radio button. And finally we have to check it out, the last item, mobile data. Okay, and change the text into mobile data is selected. Okay, now we can check it out. So now I am going to test the application again, run the application. Okay, now we have the application available on the virtual device. So now here I am going to select Wi-Fi. Now we select Wi-Fi selected, and I click the button again. Now you can see that the previous selection is not selected now. That means when each time the menu is created, it will automatically override the previous selection. So in previous case I select Wi-Fi, but it is not selected now. So we have to save the previous selection. The system will automatically override the state of each menu item. So we have to save the previous selection done by the user. So for that I have to declare another variable for save the previous selection. So here I declare another integer variable int item selection. Okay, and initialize that variable with the value 0. So when I create the menu, when I create the context menu, I have to check the previous selected item. So here I have to create an object of menu item. I name it as menu item. So we have to get each of the menu item. I change this one into item Wi-Fi. So before going to change that one, so if the user select Wi-Fi, I have to set the selected item integer value into, what is that variable name, item selection, that is. So whenever user select Wi-Fi, I change the value of item selection into 1. Okay, and when user select Bluetooth, I change the value into 2. And finally whenever user select the mobile data, I change the variable value into 3. Okay, so here in this on create context menu, whenever each time the menu is created, here I am going to select the previously selected item. So create an object of menu item here and use the menu object dot find item. Use this method find item and specify the item ID. R dot id dot first is Wi-Fi. So we have to create menu item object for other 2 items. The second one is item Bluetooth. Now the ID is r.id Bluetooth, and the final one is mobile data, item mobile data. Change the ID into ID mobile data. Okay, now according to the value of the variable item selection, we have to check each of these items. So here I am going to check each situation. So if the item selection equal to 1, that means user previously select the Wi-Fi option. So in that case I am going to check the first item Wi-Fi dot set checked into true. Okay, and else if item selection equal to 2. If it is 2, you shall select the Bluetooth in previous case. So item Bluetooth dot set checked into true, and the final one is mobile data, else if item selection equal to 3. That means you shall select the mobile data option. So item mobile data dot set checked into true. Okay, so in this case the system will remember the previous selection done by the user. So here is a spelling mistake, else if. Okay, so now we can check the application again. Now I run the application. Okay, now the application is available on the virtual device. Now I click the button. Now the context action menu is available. Now here I am going to make my first selection. I select Bluetooth. Now the Bluetooth is now selected. So now again I click the button. Now you can see that now the system will remember the previous selection done by the user. So now I change my selection into mobile data. Now the mobile data is selected. Now I click the button again. Now you can see now the system will remember the previous selection done by the user. So this is how we use a radio button with a context menu or a menu. So you can use a radio button or a text box with a menu by using the selectable behavior attribute in the menu XML file. You can see it here. You have to use, sorry, it is not selectable behavior, it is checkable behavior attribute. If you're using it as single, it will show the radio button, and if you're using it as all, then it will show a checkbox instead of radio button. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.